Is it on go or is it on 3 or is it on 1?
Problematic.
I'm Marquise.
Problematic. Problematic. Look out podcast. Here, Se2 in the building. Problematic.
It's your boy Juju.
Problematic. Look out podcast. Problematic.
Yo, what did my man just say then?
Problematic.
Yo, you're listening to Mr. Rock.
Problematic. Cookout podcast.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode with the Problematic Cookout, where we bring you the topics that no one wants to discuss and try to find a middle ground. I'm your boy Juju, the host for today, and let me check in with my co-hosts to see how they're doing. My boy Marquise, how you been?
Yo, we chilling, bro. Just monitoring the situation with the GME stock and everything right now, because we're trying to be millionaires, but you know it's a little tough out there.
Hope you got a share, dog.
Yes, sir.
I
buy that one
to,
share and hold it.
Hold it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, in New York here, it's snowing like crazy. There's nothing but snow everywhere. It's terrible. I think it was snowing for you guys earlier, but it just that's what the issue is with Se2 right now. He trapped in his house. He ain't driving nowhere. He ain't going nowhere. Right?
Yeah, man, it's Rock here, Mr. Rock. And as I was talking about last week, I'm just reading. That's all I'm doing, bro. Just reading and YouTubing, and that's it, and learning.
What are you reading at the moment?
I don't want to tell you right now what I'm reading. I mentioned it last episode, so anybody listening,
That boy always want
check
to
out
keep
what I
his
said
money to
last
himself.
episode. Hey,
I thought we were about sharing the wealth here. Bro. What's going on?
No, that's what's
show
up.
the way.
That's what's up. That's what's up. But we'll continue our series on finding your passion today. And today we have a very, very special guest, our first guest on the Problematic Cookout. And we are starting this with a bang. So our guest today is an internationally recognized wedding filmmaker being featured in popular wedding outlets just like Junebug Weddings, Looks Like Film, and Dirty Boots and Messy Hair. He's now part of the 2020 panel of wedding film judges in the Worldwide Event Videographers Association Annual Film Awards. With over 6 years of professional experience in the wedding industry, he has also devoted his efforts into helping couples make the most out of the relationship by publishing an Amazon top 10 selling book in the wedding category, Wedding Day Confidence. These publications help couples around the globe for their big wedding day by bringing them into deeper, loving relationships, both on and off camera. Our guest today, Arron Daniel, guys. So, Arron, welcome, man. We're happy and honored to have you here.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate having you here, man.
Oh, man, what an honor it is, and what a beautiful introduction. Thank you, Juju.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. No, it's very special to have you here. And I guess we'll jump right into it because we want to know so much more about your journey, what brought you there, what brought you to writing the book. So if you want to maybe start by telling us, sharing a little bit more about the book, what led you to that, and obviously don't tell us too much about the book because we still want people to buy it. But tell us some more about what motivated you to get on that journey.
Yeah, so as you mentioned in the intro, like by trade, I'm a wedding videographer and photographer. So this book kind of came out of nowhere, kind of. I feel to my traditional audience that I've been catering to for the past almost 7 years now. So with this book, it really came out more as a necessity for me as a wedding filmmaker, but also as a business owner. And I say as a creative business owner because the book Wedding Day Confidence is kind of my opus of knowledge placed into a kind of easy to read book. So on the surface, it's a book of 150 questions for couples to get to know each other better. But within the lines, it's a book that has life lessons that myself and many others have benefited from. Like, for example, attachment theory and knowing your attachment style. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but I'm sure we'll get into that later on in the podcast. And then, attachment style. So moving from that as well, it kind of teaches you about my behind the scenes creative ideation process for artists as well. And so as a business owner, it was kind of my subtle way of putting my business etiquette onto paper. But that's kind of the deeper level of it. But again, on the surface, it really was meant to help couples, I guess, perform better on camera during their wedding day. So
I like that.
Yeah, I hope that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
No,
Now,
no, for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off there.
Now, as an aside, so taking the perspective of it as a wedding filmmaker, like an artist versus a business owner, it's my job as an artist to literally make you look good on camera. And any decent videographer or photographer can direct couples in flattering ways. But like what I touch on in the book is really about how the best wedding films are the ones that are natural. So without extensively posing the people in front of the camera.
Totally.
I'm sure Mr. Rock knows that.
Definitely.
I started reading the book.
Oh, man.
So I'm not quite done with it. How accurate are these stories? Like the story you start with, and I don't want to give too much of it away, but how accurate are some of these stories?
Oh man, the beginning story was meant to draw you in. That was 100% real.
Wow,
which is crazy.
Oh,
to
man.
think.
You got some suspense.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, it's a good opener. It'll draw you in, I hope.
Yeah, clearly, if it got Juju in the mix, bro, you doing a good job.
Like a Bumble man himself reading about weddings.
Hey,
Listen to Bumble Hat.
I'm not gonna lie. I read that and I thought about going to buy a wedding ring and start figuring this thing out. Man. I started reading. I was like, hold on now. I kind of want that too.
All right, quick one, Arron. So you know, it sounds like a lot of the book is based on personal experience. I haven't read it yet. I'll get to it soon. But did you do any like additional research? Or like how long was that?
Totally. So to touch on the kind of process behind the book, it started off with, as you said, personal experience and working in the wedding industry.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of what informs my practice as a videographer is actually the like psychological science behind working with people. So a lot of the research inherently was already, it came to be through other people.
Okay.
So a lot of what gets me in the director kind of mindset is actually therapy. A lot of psychotherapists have a lot of, they are, I would argue, the most like hands-on when it comes to couples.
For sure.
And like anyone can learn from them. Mm-hmm. So I would say the majority of it is expert research put into the context of like an everyday reader and like hopefully bride and groom.
I want to ask a little about that because something I'm sure that I can share that because that's on a lot of your Instagram and a lot of the clips that you share. You have the 5 A's that you refer to, correct? Which I quite love. I watch all of those videos and they were really, really interesting. How did you come about finding those, and what kind of research did you do to get to that conclusion?
Yeah.
So just before you answer, sorry, Arron. Just to tag on to that question, can you also state or tell us what part of this came out of your own personal experience dealing with relationships?
Okay, yeah. So that kind of touches on both your questions here, because what really sparked my kind of thesis around the book, the 5 A's essentially, was my own experience and then seeing it in every other couple that I've worked with. So, oh man, that's a tough question, Juju, because like a lot of the things that like my experience comes from so many different parts of the world, not just as an international or trying to be an international videographer these days, but getting different perspectives on how people interact really comes from the different types of people around the globe. And I don't know if that's kind of touching on what you're meaning to ask, but as I said, psychotherapists, other artists, other videographers, photographers, I get a lot of my inspiration from the luxury sector. So LVMH, Richemont, and like those guys. I don't want to get into it too deep, but yeah, I hope that kind of makes sense too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in your field of work, there's a lot of pressure. It's one of the most pressured jobs ever because you need to make sure that this day is perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's always
So
far
even
from it.
before, thinking about this, even before you actually go and start shooting and you have to start building relationships with these people, is there a lot of research or, do you have specific types of questions that you ask just to try and draw information from them, or is it case by case?
So I think what you're asking, Mr. Rock, is how do I like get to know the people I work with? Is that what
Yeah,
you're trying
that's
to
one of
touch
the
on?
key things. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that, because not a lot of people really understand that, especially when you're first starting out trying to get into the wedding field, at least from what I've seen. A lot of what makes good photography and videography is how relatable the audience is with the photo, like the end photos and video, but that relation between the viewer will not be as good if the relationship between the cameraman and the subject is solid. So the first step for anyone trying to make any sort of name in any type of camera work is really getting to know the people in front of the camera too. So I think I kind of divulged from your question there. So I don't want to say something that doesn't really. Who would you say would this question be for? Because there are different types of perspectives you can take with something like that.
Yeah, because say, for instance, I guess business in general, but as I said, this is one of the most pressured environments that anybody's ever going to be in, especially when you are the one that has to bring this day together and make it memorable, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have instances where people are very nervous about what's going on, and the real side of them sometimes gets a bit sheltered because they need to, put this front forward to try to make sure the day is okay. And that's when you get the instances where people will be, I guess, posing and a bit more structured in their, in their delivery of things when you really want to try and get the real person out, right?
Exactly.
So I guess you getting to know that person in depth is then you have key things to pull upon when you're actually recording and, getting them to smile or getting them to know about each other, because I'm guessing you're going to have to learn a lot about their relationship.
Exactly.
Even though you're taking photos and videography, you're going to have to learn about them. So
I think the where I started and where I actually came from, what really sparked my curiosity into understanding people better was the 5 love languages, which is what you guys talked about in a few episodes ago. So that was really the starting point for everything, because the 5 love languages, as much as the 5 A's are in all of us, I would argue the 5 love languages were really a kind of easier way to understand how people react together. So I think the biggest things you can do as any type of business owner, but specifically within the wedding industry, is to ask those types of like quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation types of questions. So really trying to form some kind of rapport that's deep enough where they can be comfortable enough to tell you that that's who they are. And then once you know that, you can, at least from my perspective, you can start to direct them on camera using those kinds of their particular love language. So if, for example, if you knew your subject was into physical touch, like you would most likely want to ask them things about touching their partner, like how they best how to best hold them or something like that.
Yeah, how to best receive that, like physical, that was a hug or like grabbing the arm kind of thing.
Yeah.
Got you.
But again, on the opposite end of that, if you know for a fact that physical touch is not something that they're akin to, you wouldn't ask something like that, and probably ask something along the lines of like something about compliments with words of affirmation.
Man, that makes that job so have you, if you come across clients that haven't taken the test or don't know those things, do you make them take the test or?
Like when I first started asking them about the 5 love languages and stuff, that was, I want to say, about 4 years ago. That's when a lot of my clients at least didn't really know what it was. But
Mhm.
as we get into like these days, like modern 2021 now, everyone knows what the 5 love languages are.
For sure.
So
I only
that really
found out
helps.
at the end of last year. So
Oh man,
And look,
Marquise.
and look at him. He's already a changed man. But how do you then adjust? I don't know if that's a difficult question, but how do you then adjust how you're going to approach a wedding
Yeah.
based on that? Because in a picture, like, let's say people tell you they're not so fond of physical touch, they're still going to need to touch each other to show on camera that they love each other. So how do you adjust that? I'm interested in.
Yeah. So the ability to put something on, for example, a trailer, like a video clip or something,
Mhm.
will be different than what you get in a photo. So taking the different the types of media into account will change the way you direct people. But in a general kind of sense, when you know that someone isn't as attentive to, like, for example, what you brought up, physical touch, if they're not attentive to that, then there are ways for you to throw that into the direction without them getting too deep into it or too stressed out, from what I've seen. So
Makes
an
sense.
example of this is like, let's say Se2, you were trying to pose with Marquise here. And I forget which one of you said physical touch wasn't your thing. Was it?
I
That's
think
me.
mine-
That's me. Last one.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Because that's why I'm asking these questions. Because I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I hate physical touch. So I'm trying to figure out how I can take a positive picture of my shorty. You know. Like,
Aaron, you done changed Juju with 2 questions, bro.
Oh, man. Okay. Oh, okay. You in the shorty, bro.
Shorty.
Oh man. So directing. Okay, let's change up the situation then. Marquise, you're out of the picture. You're good. Like being together, being in that close kind of photo together, and then I try to get to, let's say, Juju and whoever his special someone is, and he's not that into that kind of thing. So ideally, I would have understood that something else, like what his preferred language is. Like, was it words?
Quality time.
Quality time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got quality time, and so instead of saying, "Hey, can I get you in for a nice hug?" I would say something along the lines of, "Can you pretend you are doing what you would normally be doing on a Friday night or something, like hanging
That
out
makes
together?"
sense. Yeah.
So getting you into the kind of mindset, but also type of environment where you are most comfortable.
Gotcha.
So using the love languages was my basis for the 5 A's. But what really made the 5 A's something I try to fall back on more is like how much deeper you can get. Because with the 5 love languages, you're almost unidimensional in that you can only ask those kind of things. Whereas with the 5 A's, you know a more broad understanding of how they interact together. So if you want to get into the 5 A's now, I can kind of talk about that. I don't know if this is a good time, but
Yeah.
No,
Let's do it.
My ears are open, man.
Yeah, exactly.
okay.
I got my notebook out. Let's go.
A notepad ready on the screen.
Oh man. So to bring it into the context of my book as well, the purpose of the book was to get those 5 A's out of you and your partner, and for you to understand that with your partner, right? So with 150 questions, each of those questions are categorized into 5 different categories. The 5 A's, which are 1, affection, 2, ambition, 3, artistry, 4, awareness, and 5, awakening. Each of the 5 A's gives you and your partner the guidance to really explore a specific section of your life while staying also broad enough where you can understand them on a more holistic type of level. Does that kind of make sense? Where the 5 A's are more, the 5 love languages are more a surface level. I don't want to like knock it, because Gary Chapman was a big part of how I've grown as someone who works within relationships. But yeah, so to go into each of the 5 A's, the first A, affection. With affection, I touch on questions about how your partner grew up with their parents or caregivers and how they raised you, and how that kind of formed you into the person you are today as an adult. So like how you attach to the people around you now was it came from how you attach to people as a kid, basically.
Okay.
So affection was a big thing for me. Next came ambition. Ambition is how we, let me try to put this into nice wording. how we self-improve and kind of grow, and self-improvement and development, basically. So within this chapter, within ambition, I ask about your role models, your productivity and problem-solving abilities. Basically, how you get your drive to succeed. So that's ambition. So think like a fire within you. I like to think of it as a visual. So fire was ambition for me. Affection is water, kind of like surrounding you and calming you down. So water is affection. Ambition is fire. The third A is artistry, and I like to define it as your ability to create and innovate. So expressing yourself through, let's say, your professional work. Artistry is really putting together things that are new from things that are already there. So turning things into something new and productive, basically. So within this chapter, I ask you and your partner to talk about and describe your creative idols, yourself, how you envision your worth in your workplace and your kind of self-confidence in your industry. So it's really how I think of artistry as like, I don't know, bricks coming together, if that makes sense. So like turning something into something new. I don't know if that was good wording, but yeah.
That's hitting me right in the chest.
So you got artistry. Fourth is awareness, which is a big thing right now. Awareness is your ability to connect with society and culture, and it's really how knowledgeable you are with the current politics of the day and your like pulse on the world, basically. So within this chapter, I ask questions about, excuse me, who influences you the most out of everyone in the world, how you go about moving away from pain or moving towards pleasure within the world, and your kind of understanding of history. So awareness, the fourth A, is really about how well you know the world as a whole and the people in it. So I think of awareness as like air, if that makes sense, the element of air. And the fifth A is awakening, which is really your ability to realize your place in that bigger world, hopping off of the fourth A, awareness. So within this chapter, I touched on more the spiritual side or religious side of our personalities, like how connected or disconnected we feel from the people around us, and your like scale of acceptance of the things around you. So the fifth A I like to think of as, I don't know, this is a hard one to envision, like an aura around us.
Yeah. And I think that some of the work that you've done from an artistic standpoint, and how, if people haven't done so yet, like I strongly encourage to go visit his Instagram page that obviously will link in the bio at the end of this.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely amazing the way you've kind of put that together and things like that. So clearly you have a knack. And I want to ask. So obviously, I'm all about business. I'm all about that. So I want to hear a little bit more about what created you to go on that journey, right? Like what got you to. This is not something that you were taught in school, right? Like, so at what point did you decide, I'm going to step out and faith, start my own business and pursue something I really love? Obviously, we are in a ministry called finding your passion. So how did you go about finding that passion?
Yeah. So the passion really came from a lot of different things. I had to write this out because there was a lot of things that I want to touch on. What I think other people can really take like solace in if they're in the same kind of situation. Marquise, you're part of the story. just as a teaser here. But so
Marquise plug. All right.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh, we'll get into how I like met you guys through the grapevine, basically.
Yeah.
So my journey is like long-winded. I was actually in science my entire academic career, and in elementary school, I thought I was going to be a private investigator because Sherlock Holmes was my favorite character of all time. So in high school, as bad as I was in chemistry, I really thought the sciences was kind of my direction in life, especially with Asian parents. My mom still works in a hospital doing research, and my dad's Mac Eng graduate from McMaster University.
Oh, wow.
So it was always in my blood. That led me to McMaster University. I actually studied integrated science. So in my first year, when I met you, Marquise, I don't know if you remember it. The circumstances weren't the best back then, but I'm glad we kept in touch.
It was a dire situation.
Like many college students forever.
We don't have to get into the details about
The nitty gritty.
Ramen
Bad
noodles.
behavior.
every time, Marquise. Anyway, shout out to that Mills library crew.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, the science program I was in, ISci, integrated science, was one of the toughest programs to get into and probably the hardest by my own biased and subjective opinion. Basically, we would learn a lot about the natural sciences like physics, biology, chemistry, environmental science, and calculus, and put all those classes together to really solve hypothetical real-world problems, like how to plan a mission to space with different chemical propulsion methods and the psychology of sending a man or a robot. Another project that really stood out to me was like curing cancer, so using the logarithmic growth of a tumor and best chemical or radiation types of therapy. Now, I don't want to say, like, the reason I say all this is not to show how, like, stressful university was for me. Like for many, I would say 100% of the people that go to university or college. But as much as I grew a disdain for academia and any type of traditional research field, I don't regret going into that integrated science program. As a creative business owner, it really taught me how to learn. It taught me how to think outside the box, and like perspective was a huge part of that program, and basically the whole program in a nutshell. I don't think I would have gone to school for anything else. So that really formed my kind of outside the box creative type of thinking when approaching any types of problems. Again, like curing cancer or planning a mission to space was a huge thing. And really got me thinking outside the box. And that I really took that into the business world and tried and still try to make it as creative and what's the word? Take a lateral form of thinking when approached by a typical problem that someone has. So anyway, going back to that program, I worked a summer job after my first year in that science program, a 9-to-5 job. And even though it was just a few weeks, it really changed my life forever, because it was then that I knew I was not going to keep doing it. after those, like, I think it was only a month, but after that 1 month, I knew that this wasn't the path for me. And then
quit. Yep,
basically, yeah, I'm thankful I had our boys Marquise back then, because they really helped me stay in line and stay focused. And without them and without the other classmates in my like 50-person program, we were all really close. So it was my relationships with them that really pushed me to keep going forward. Even though I didn't take that degree and use it afterwards, they helped me get through it and take the most out of it. So the friends that were there really shape who I am today, trying to put a perspective on like any type of struggle in life. So after, let's kind of fast forward here. After that program, this is where the creative part of me comes out. So after I graduated, I started freelancing in videography and photography through Kijiji. So I put an ad on Kijiji. I was always into photo and video, like most people who get into the creative fields. They tend to know how to work a camera since an early age, right? I would argue that a lot of you guys had some kind of technical experience growing up with either audio or video. Would that be a safe assumption? Yeah,
Definitely me anyway. I've been in it years, and from my parents bringing me up in that environment. So
yeah, and you're
it's
doing it
been a
now,
part of my blood.
right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
You think you could touch on that a little bit, Aaron?
Yeah.
Difference between like a regular guy with a camera and then like an actual like videographer or cinematographer? Because in my past, I've worked with like a YouTuber friend of mine, and he like taught me all the camera stuff, but I never could really like see the vision he was going for, and it kind of got to a point where we like stopped working together because I couldn't match what he was trying to do. And then I just was causing friction in the process. So you think you could touch on that like difference a little bit?
Because I'm still trying to figure out how to use my iPhone for real.
I don't even know how to use my camera, bro.
Oh man, that's a tough question because at least these days it's really hard to find someone who isn't into some kind of camera work with Instagram or Facebook or whatever else you're on.
TikTok.
Bumble.
Gotta get them profile pics, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you're, let me try to reframe this question. So, are you asking like what defines like a more professional cameraman versus?
Yeah.
Okay. So from my experience, I would say that the people who are really doing well within the field are the people that have something to say. The people with a message, the people who put a deeper kind of life, what's the word? Like almost parable, like to make this a little more religious here. But if you can make your work in line with how we as humans taught each other, which was arguably through religion, if you can make your work almost religious in that it's sharing some sort of message, that's my defining moment for someone. This is the first time I've ever said that, so
yeah, I know that sounds pretty prolific there, buddy. Like,
y'all heard it here first.
like, all right, Aaron, dropping gems on the cookout. This is what we talking about.
That's right. No, these are tough questions, but I really think a lot of people can gain a lot from it so far. So to take that a bit further, if you can make your work stand out in that you are teaching someone something, or ideally teaching the world something, then that's when you are stepping up to that level, to any kind of professional level.
Gotcha. All right.
So to put this into context with you guys, Juju again, let's say you're trying to take a few photos for I don't know if you're on Bumble, but whoever you're with, what you could say this about someone's bio as well. If you have something deeper to say, then in whatever it is you're trying to create, if there's that underlying message about what you want the world to know, if it's there, if it's understandable, if it's deep enough, then that's something that will draw attention. I don't know if that like you guys vibe with that.
I guess it's that communication of the passion, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you are passionate about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Trying to communicate that to the other side of the screen.
Exactly. I find that a lot of people get distracted by the medium itself. Like a lot of, I don't want to knock anyone, but a lot of YouTubers who are trying to make some kind of name for themselves, I feel like they rely too much on the tech side, on the surface level, like, hey, this is a cool edit or something like that, like the almost gimmicky type of stuff.
Gotcha.
That's fine, because that's what helps people also do that kind of stuff. But it's with the people who do it well, do it with a reason. Like, if you don't have a reason to use some kind of editing technique, or let's say you're on Bumble and you're like, whoa, why did this person take that angle? And you realize it was to show off the booty or something.
It's like, you see the cheeks from this angle? You know I ain't got no cheeks. All right.
And that's the message or something like that. If there's a deeper message, then that becomes something to look at, to really keep an eye on.
And I think that, from reading a lot of your work and a lot of the reviews from your clients, it sounds like it's really something that you kind of took pride in, right? Like the message behind not just the media. Like you're a very talented, obviously, photographer and videographer. No, but that's for real. But it's more than that, right? It's really the message that is behind everything that you do and the pictures that you take and the videos that you make. And I think that that's what really sets you apart and that you kind of took on and what's setting your brand.
Thank you, man. That means a lot because that's really what I would urge anyone to try to work towards, like putting that meaning and naturalness almost in everything that you do.
And I just don't I'm that deep of a person, man. But yeah, go ahead, Rob.
So, I checked out your social, checked out your website and everything, and the quality is just like up there. The first video I watched was like, damn. And the thing is, I knew the people in the video, and I was like, you know what I mean? So it showed me something like about those people that I never knew, and you were able to, bring that together and show
ripped it out of there.
What
they keep in their personal space, and you've been able to bring it to the screen. But you bring that level of quality, and you can see it in all your work. It comes together as a unit. So it's definitely you. I could look at this and I could look at that and I can say, yeah, that's Arron's work.
Yeah.
And like, how did you build your brand? Because I'm not talking about just your logo or your name. You built a brand because you can see it and feel it. I'm watching it and I'm feeling what the other people are feeling on the other side of the screen. You just see the format and you're like, this is Arron right here. And it's like you've been able to bring that.
You're making me blush.
Yeah, let's just pour out the list of compliments.
Thanks, guys.
Like I didn't know you before, and I heard about it. So let me check out, bro. And I was like, wow. And I kept scrolling and looking at stuff. But that key thing is, when they say people, you need to work at your craft, right? But people can work at the craft and still not produce anything, because they try and do this, they try and do that, they try and do all these things. And I'm one of those people that have tried many different things. I'm still trying to hone in on what is my area to focus on.
What's you?
I know I'm good at many different things, but like I can look at you and see this is what you're good at. You may do a lot of other things as well, but right now I can see this is you. How did you get to that point, and how long do you think it took you to get there?
You gotta help me. You gotta wait for me to come down from this height. Yeah. Yeah. The brand, to touch on the brand aspect of your question, like that really stems from who I am. Like it's a very personal touch to any brand. Without Elon Musk, you don't have Tesla or something like that. Without Steve Jobs, you don't have Apple. And it's really the deeper person that can bring that out into the business world, right? And refining yourself will inherently refine your work. If there's one sentence to say, it's that, like, refining yourself will refine your work inherently. So the deeper, again, to bring it back my message about how important messaging is, you have to have something to say. Like I would say that to any aspiring artist, like be like, I don't want to say like be like a politician, but be like someone with some kind of almost what's the word? An agenda. Maybe not an agenda.
Like some kind of influencer, like, like we know from history, like, like a Kierkegaard kind of guy or something like that.
Maybe, yeah. So someone who's trying to push something, like Kierkegaard or like a Napoleon or a Genghis Khan. But maybe not that crazy.
Maybe not Genghis, that was a little
but with oh man, it's crazy that those are the
Like
types
a
of
Leonardo
people
DiCaprio, you know.
a DiCaprio or a Da Vinci.
A Da
People
Vinci,
with something
yeah.
to say, and people who can put that into the world through their craft. Those are the products that we're gonna remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from that, I would say, you know, looking at and listening to what you're saying is like you do this work, but it's like your mission is to create something better for your clients.
Exactly.
You're improving their life by, you know, creating this moment that will last forever. And it kind of, you know, from what you're speaking and trying to understand who the people are and, you know, the 5 different A's and love languages and stuff like that, you're in a position where you're not just doing videography, you're doing a bit of mentorship, you're doing a bit of, you know, searching for inner selves, inner people, and bringing that together. So, you know, you're not just a photographer, a videographer, an author, you're also a relationship builder. You know what I mean? And
I try.
it's like your craft speaks for itself, but I just want to say from me to you is like from listening to you and seeing what you're doing, you're doing something I think deeper than you probably even understand. You know,
that means a lot.
and it's just getting to that point that, you know, all of us here, we're on a path trying to figure out what it is that, you know, is our passion and what it is that's going to drive us to be great.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm speaking for myself to you, but you may have a different view of things. But, you know, do you ever wake up thinking to yourself like, yeah, this is what I was put on the earth to do?
Every day. Like, I don't even know what I'm specifically meant to do, because depending on the situation, it changes. Like the people, I find that the artists, the creators, the CEOs that do well are able to pivot within whatever the environment is. So like Bezos left. I don't know why. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, I saw that today.
Yeah, he
Just
stepped
today.
down. Yeah,
Stepped
he's
down as
still
CEO.
chairman though.
He's still chairman. Yeah.
He's still doing his craft, but in a different way.
Yeah,
In the same way that
situation.
someone else should be pivoting. Like pivoting is a big part of anything in life, right?
And how much of that, like, I'm just curious, how much of that is like conscious effort to actually go behind that, and how much of that for someone that's created, like that's in the creative field, right? Like yourself, how much of that is like you actually setting time aside? Like, how do you structure a day? If you think about it from a business standpoint, how do you go about, well, I need to set aside time to just be creative, or do you just step in some of these moments and you just go with the flow and you just go with your vision? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh man, yeah, that's actually my day to day is actually a big challenge, because it changes from day to day. As a creative business owner, it's a bit different than a traditional type of corporate job, which I'm sure you can understand. In that it's I don't have someone managing or breathing on my neck with whatever I'm doing. So the people managing problem disappears when you start to work for yourself as a business owner or creative entrepreneur. What replaces this though is the challenge of self-management.
Yeah.
So my biggest challenge is managing my own time and keeping my own set schedules, because I don't have someone breathing down my back, it gets easy for me and any other creative to like slack off when we shouldn't.
Yeah.
But it also works in the other end, in that we could be working when we know we should be relaxing. So I get distracted a lot with when I should be just relaxing with my girlfriend or family or friends like that.
The hustle never ends, too toxic
Exactly.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
The hustle
it's
is
your baby,
always
right?
there. Yeah, it's
When
a
your baby
relationship
starts
in
screaming,
itself.
you got to run to it and nurture it, and then put it down, but you still have your mind on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a tough part. You, Mr. Rock, you probably understand that the most because of your family as well. Trying to stay on as much as anything that you can, right? But the same goes for all of you, in that whatever projects or people you have in your life, like managing your time with them, but also managing your own self time, like alone time.
Yeah, because you can't just be 100% in your work, because then you're just you lose the very need to do that in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of
The thing is,
self-destructive.
when your partner knows you and you know your partner, they can tell when you're thinking about work.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
step out of it, Aaron. You know,
Exactly.
It's like, come on, man, watch this Netflix. Come on.
I can't. I got to think about that thing I got to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's because there's so many opportunities in the world to be creative, right? Like everywhere you may see it as like, oh my, this would be a beautiful engagement shoot, or this will be so. So it's just normal that those things flow through your mind. But then, being a business owner, how would you say? What would you say is the biggest challenge in that, or biggest reward? And then on the other side, the biggest reward when you go about, because I imagine, you wouldn't change a thing about your career path in your life. So what are some of the greatest reward and that make those challenges worth it?
Yeah. So the other end of the challenge, the other end of the stick there is that because I don't have someone managing me, I get to manage myself. And that's like the other end of the same coin, the flexible time, right? I believe any entrepreneur or creative business owner, again, starts working for themselves because it allowed them freedom in some form, time freedom with the bonus of money, hopefully. So the lifestyle choice, right? The freedom and the ability to choose when and who to work with. That's my kind of biggest reward.
Nice.
So, like not all creativepreneurs have the opportunity to work on this kind of level of freedom, but it's always the goal. Like for you guys, I'm sure too. With this podcast can go in that direction as well if you took it there.
That's what we here for, man. That's what we aiming for. Arron, I gotta cut you down a few notches. I'm sorry. I apologize, but I think this is a very good, constructive question for the audience. And I hate to be the bearer of this question, but I'm here to ask about some of your failures as a business owner. I don't want it to be. I don't want you to
just putting up on the pedestal, man.
we gotta bring it back down. I don't want someone to be like, yo, I'm gonna buy this $10,000 Sony camera and just get into it and be like, yeah, I could do the whole wedding thing too.
Oh man. Yeah, exactly. Like it's tough. It's tough to see the shadows of entrepreneurship when Instagram glorifies how
just
cool
embellishes
it
the good stuff, right? Like
exactly.
You need to see. Some people need to see just to get a reality check. Like, oh, this is hard. It's not.
Yeah.
Real.
So this question came out of left field. I right off the cuff, I could say a lot of things about my failures. Like the first one that comes to mind is because I'm able to work with people that I want to be working with. I started working in weddings with my friends. So a lot of my friends would shoot with me, and some of them still do. But the biggest thing in my life that I regret, one of the biggest things is kind of tainting friendships when work gets in the way.
Okay. Yeah.
Never to the point where it's like you're not my friend or something like that, but in like thinking back, I could have handled it a bit differently.
Gotcha.
So to be a little more specific, and for our listeners that maybe want to take something home with this question, when you are when you're working with other people, like the best thing you can do is always treat them like a friend. When you start to take on the role, when you start to get in over your head about being a business owner, the like stereotypical CEO or judge with a hammer breathing down your neck again is going to get in the way of how you behave, and can taint how you treat the people around you. So treat people like this is basic, like management skills, but treat people respectfully and like a friend, especially on a wedding level when everyone's trying to like be as happy as you can.
Yeah. So you definitely wouldn't take Marquise and say, give him a job. Give him a side hustle. Maybe not.
Look like the filming business isn't for you, Marquise.
Nah, man. Aaron, remember I was there for you on that fateful day.
Yeah,
so,
we had the nachos, we had the pitcher, we had
everything.
He's like, slide your boy a little help once in a little while.
Yeah, those are all really good and interesting questions. I had a question because you mentioned earlier, just to get back a little bit, you spoke about the freedom to work with who you want and really when you want. But do you find yourself having at the level, and as the more you grow, having to turn people down or to be a little more selective? Because I'm sure you also got into business because you wanted to have that freedom of work with who you want and not who a CEO up there tells you need to work with this person. Do you find yourself having to sometimes say no to people because your values may not align, or because you're being overworked and not having the time to service that many people?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest defining moments for anyone. Like, that's the goal for any business owner, I would argue, because when you can get to the point where you can say no to people, that's really a sign that you're in the right direction. When you can take, when you're at a point where you can turn down people because you're already packed up with other people to work with, that's a signifier of you being like oversubscribed with people trying to get to you, right?
Yeah.
And like, there's a quote I once heard that goes, the most dangerous men are those with options. So if you have the ability, if you have options, that says a lot about you.
I like the sound of that. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
I don't know where I heard that.
Dog.
Yeah, I gotta keep that in mind.
I think I heard that from, I don't think that was a business person who said that. It might have been like a relationship person. So that goes hand in hand with the relationships that you have. If you have options, then you have a lot.
That's cold, man. That's cold. I like that.
Now, Arron, so given this whole situation and how it played out and how you got started and how you managed to get where you are now, you mentioned that having your friends and family supporting you was pretty key and helping build you up. Like, what would you say was the biggest challenge when it came to dealing with the people or like your friends in terms of that support? Was there any challenges in that area that kind of at some point you felt like, oh man, I really don't feel like doing this anymore?
That's a really tough question, because for me, that crosses my mind a lot. Like, I have to really think about, is this cookout really something I want to go to? Or is this something?
Like,
something
they want me to record their wedding for free on the side, huh?
Something like that, right? But that to give you my kind of subjective and opinionated answer, like I think about that all the time. Like, I have to think about that all the time. I have to really understand where, again, bringing up those values and where the people who I want to be giving my energy, right? It's not just the clients I'm giving my energy, but also the relationships with family or friends. Like, the biggest thing I'm thankful for, though, is that they all understand. Like, I wouldn't be where I am without having or knowing that they have my back when I need them, in the same way that I have theirs whenever they need. So within my book, actually, I talk about having those kind of secure people you can rely on. If you don't have people to rely on, there's no way you're going to be able to take risks or make big investments into things without knowing that you have that kind of backup. So I owe a lot of where I am to the friends that I grew up with and the family that I know that are there for me still.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Cool. Yeah.
Can you speak really quickly about I want to get back to the book. Sorry, I know we spoke about it quite a bit at the beginning, but the process of actually writing a book, like, what does that look like? What did that look like? I know I've spoken to a few people that have written books, but I know that that's different for everyone. And kind of like, how do you allocate? Like, how do you start? How do you plan on writing? Do you plan beginning to start before you actually start writing and things like that? Can you speak really quickly about that process for you?
Yeah. So getting into writing a book, you're going to shave off like years of your life doing it. Like, right off the bat, you're going to feel like you lost maybe a few decades. At least that's how I felt. So if you were to go about planning and putting a book together, the process starts with really, again, honing your message, like really understanding what you want to say and put out into the world. So it leads back to my previous answer here. The ability to formalize your thoughts into one cohesive thesis. Like if you think back to high school, having that thesis statement in all your essays or something like that, right? So first step is really understanding what you want to say. Second step is who you're saying it to. Third step is bringing your points together, at least in some kind of skeleton way, and then writing it out eloquently and well enough for your intended audience to understand. And then after that comes a bunch of editing and like, again, years of your life down the drain.
That you will never get back.
One thing I really like about Aaron's answer here and what he's just told us is that Aaron literally applied everything he's learned in his life so far into his craft. Even if it wasn't even relevant to photography or writing a book, he found a way to make it relevant, put it together into what he's producing. That's amazing to me, man.
Dude, man, that means so much.
Well, I think that's so powerful. And when you spoke about obviously you going into academia and not being the route for you, I think that's so powerful because one thing that I often mention, and I don't know where this quote comes from, but it's a pretty popular, like you never lose. You either you win or you learn, right? So it's just so powerful that you went into a route that isn't for you. And that's what sometimes scares people is like, well, what if I take this chance and it doesn't work out? But you're going to learn something powerful from that you can then, even if it is you're working in the corporate world and you're going to go out and start your own business and it doesn't work, and then you come back to the corporate world, you're going to learn something powerful from that that you can then apply into the corporate world if that's what's right for you. But my question, I guess, we could do this all day, but I'm just curious, like, what's next for you? Like, what's the next big thing? Because I look at you and I feel like you're kind of a serial entrepreneur where just everything you touch turns into gold. But like, what's the next big thing?
Got the Midas touch.
I don't know about that, but like I strive for stuff like that, like reaching that level, the Midas touch level, The next thing. Are you asking like what I would do differently? Like
I don't know if you have like, if you want to write another book, if you want to take your photography.
He's like, nope.
Took enough years off my life. But yeah, no. If you just have like what's next, if you want to take maybe your photography and video business to the next level, what are kind of your goals, ambitions next?
I have big ambitions. What you talked about, just to bring back what you said earlier, using everything that you learn in your life and applying it to what you're doing now is really your artistry, like that element of artistry within you and being able to produce it in some kind of commercial type of way, right? And then it's the ambition within you that makes it powerful enough to get to the people that you want, right? I say, like, to answer your, I don't want to get into specifics, but I'm putting this out into the world right now, and this podcast episode is going to get a lot of views in the future. In the coming years, people are going to come back to this podcast episode and be like, "Whoa, this is where he came from. These are his boys." This
episode is the precursor, my man Arron.
Yeah, I'm putting it out into the world right now. But taking what I've learned in videography, working with people, relationships in general, like that can be applied to any aspect of life, right? So the people, you could these are transferable skills that you can cater to any type of industry. Like, Sido, whatever. Are you in where are you right now? You're in IT. So let's say, for example, I wanted to, for some reason, like get into the IT world. Like I could bring the ideas of relationships into the IT space and how UI UX can influence how a company is organized or treats each other. Something along those lines. So a lot of things are very interconnected already. It's just about finding the connections that you want to be working on. I don't know if I'm like getting away from your question,
No,
but
that's well said.
No. That's it. Gets me to think a little bit.
Yeah.
you're making the wheel spin up there. So
Yeah.
no, that's very insightful.
Mhm.
And I
So
think
I
that
just have one more.
Yeah.
No, go
Sorry.
ahead, Rock. Go
Or
ahead.
do you? Yeah. So just before we get to the end of this or whatnot, I just want to make sure I get this question in. So a lot of your work is a lot of you managing other people, right? And you talk about growing and developing and expanding. So there's potentially or hopefully, down the line, you be creating your organization and making it bigger, right? What would you say is one of your main fears? Because if you're so much of a soloist and you manage most of the direction and the passion is your passion and it goes this way, even though you do get input from other areas. But when you start to expand, what's one of the main fears that you have after working by yourself for so long?
That's a really good question. Like I could tell that you've been in it already. One of my biggest fears, like, are you asking what I'm afraid of when it comes to like getting bigger?
Yeah.
Oh,
because your passion then becomes related to other people's passion, right?
yeah. So
But I don't know if that's a key thing.
When companies get bigger and the scale gets bigger and the people that you're catering to gets wider, there's a higher chance of your work and your passion like almost dwindling, in that you can't put it all there. You can't give it to everyone in the same way that you were able to before.
Yeah.
My fear is taking on things because I think I need to. And then from that, again, draining my energy into something that doesn't like make sense.
Yeah.
So because there's a lot of things up in the air when it comes to business. Like a lot of, I would say that a lot of people still don't know how things can connect in the ways that it can. So a lot of people, including especially myself, I do a lot of experimentation with different things. Like to put oh man, I don't want to get into specifics, but let's say hypothetically, wink, wink, clothing was along the lines coming up. I wouldn't want to.
Little wink, wink, huh?
Wink, wink. I wouldn't want to invest my time, money, or energy into the things that I think I need to be doing because other people are doing it. Like being influenced by people who aren't on the same path or kind of experience level as I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my fear is both learning from someone who I shouldn't be learning from, and to, I guess, acting on that.
Okay. So you just end up forking in the wrong direction. You're like, no, that was a waste of time. Got to go back here.
Yeah.
No, I think that definitely is helpful. And I think that, even if we think about this podcast, right? Like if you think about it, well, not to say that we won't do it or that we will, but a lot of podcasts have merch, right? I think that what you're trying to say, that doesn't mean that this podcast needs to have merch in order to be successful, right? Maybe our path is different and our focus is different, and we don't need to all follow the same. But no, that's real. I think that this conversation as a whole was so inspiring, and listening to you and how you got to where you are is very very inspiring. But we do appreciate you joining us today, and
sure do.
I already went ahead and purchased the book, and I'm in the process of reading it. So I encourage everyone to do the same. But I want to give you an opportunity, give you 2 minutes here to plug whatever you want, whether it's your book, your social, your services, whatever it is. I'll put you on the spot a little bit, but
plug it in.
But tell us what we need to go out and do, and what we need to buy out there.
Yeah, let me know what number to call, because I need to get my wedding set up. And you know what I mean? All right.
I can find, if you don't have someone to attend your own wedding to, I can maybe set that up too.
I like that.
Another hint, wink, wink. I don't know. Anyway, so you can find a lot of my work. I'm also a a makeshift blogger. I write a lot of articles, which actually made it into my book on AarronDanielFilms.com. That's AARON. Daniel DANIEL Films FILMS.com. You can check out most of my films, wedding films there, photography work as well. But I think what our listeners would want to take a look at are the articles. Actually, I speak a lot about relationships, and then also how understanding your own relationships will help you direct and be a better cameraman for other relationships. So that's a big aspect of my website, and that really helps with getting more of my message out there, being able to share it in that way. You can also find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Arron Daniel Films. I'm most active on Instagram, so if you have any questions, you can reach out to me there. And yeah, I think that's the bulk of things. You can also, this is my newest thing, I'm also on Amazon. If you search up Arron Daniel Films on amazon.ca.com, you'll find both of my books up on there. First one is the Power Couples Playbook, and the second one that just came out is Wedding Day Confidence, both aiming to help couples love each other better.
Man,
All right.
I love that. Guys, you heard the man. You guys know what to do. Go follow him on social. Go buy this book, and go ahead and visit his website if you ever want to put a ring on it as well. But guys, we are about to check out for today. So y'all go ahead and subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend about it. Follow us on social. All the links are in the bio, and we'll have Aaron's information in the bio as well. But you already know that was the Problematic Cookout, and we're signing out. Peace.
Peace. See you at the next
Thanks,
one,
Aaron.
guys.
Peace, y'all.